The Secret Science at Work by Max Freedom Long. Chapter 10. Summary of the Huna Prayer Method. Because so much had to be presented to make the Huna methods and concepts clear, it may be well at this point to review several steps which are to be taken in making an effective prayer. Before attempting the serious business of making the prayer, it is assumed that, number one has become well acquainted with his low self, has found out something of its likes and dislikes, has established a teacher-pupil relationship with love, understanding, and quiet discipline, and has made the low self understand that it is to take orders from the middle self. Number 2, the low self has been taught to develop its own special talent for telepathy. It is experienced in sending thought form clusters along the Aka cords at the direction of the middle self. Number 3, the low self has been taught to accumulate a surcharge of mana. If this has been done by means of exercises and careful testing, then a command to the low self to accumulate the surcharge should be enough when one approaches the prayer time. The prayer steps, preparation before making the prayer. Number 1, amends must be made for hurts done others. Or, if this cannot be done directly, good deeds, gifts to charity, and fasting will help convince the low self, as well as the middle self, that the books have been balanced and that one is now deserving of help from the high self. Number 2, one will have decided upon what is to be asked for, making certain that it is for the good of all concerned and of hurt to no one. One will have projected himself into the future and imagines himself living in the new conditions. He will have made very sure that the low self is in full agreement that the desired condition is truly desirable and worth the work necessary to bring it about. He will also have considered and accepted any additional responsibility for granting of the request may entail. Let me read that sentence again. He also will have considered and accepted any additional responsibility the granting of the request may entail. Number 3, the plan will be made for a series of daily prayers on the same subject, always formulating the prayer in exactly the same way. The instant or miraculous answer seems to require a very large amount of mana to enable the high self to bring about the changes required on the physical plane. It is the exceptional individual who will be able to accumulate a sufficient mana surcharge and offer it with sufficient well-made picture of the desired conditions to get instant or nearly instant answers. Also, it must be remembered that some problems, especially those which involve the lives of others, take additional time to work out through a gradual change in circumstances. Number 4, 3 or 4 unrelated things should not be presented in the same prayer action. For instance, suppose one wants perfect health, new work that is pleasant and useful, friends, and also the healing of an ill relative. It is best to present each in a separate prayer, spaced at least an hour apart, after practicing a vivid visualization of each one in turn. Number 5, visualize the end results which are desired and do not be too specific as to how they should be brought about. This leaves the high self free to bring about the desired condition in its own way. It must never be forgotten that the high self is the utterly trustworthy parental spirit, and that it knows best what is good for its man. It cannot be forced or commanded to do what would be the wrong thing by answering a prayer for something that would bring the wrong conditions either for its own man or for another. One does not try to compel the high self to answer a prayer, nor storm the gates of heaven by following the very modern practice of affirming with all possible command of will that some set of desired circumstances is appearing as an activity, as an actuality here and now, whether they are good for all or may be hurtful to some. One asks, as of a living Father, that the prayer be accepted and acted upon, always with the proviso that it is something good and fitting and proper to be proud about. Number 6, one will have taken time to practice long enough so that a swift and easy contact can be made with the high self at any time, even though a prayer is not made. Such practice is simple. There should first be an accumulation of a surplus of mana, then a quieting down and meditating on the nature of the high self, the fact that it is veritable and that it is always waiting, willing and anxious to be asked to take its full part in the job of living the happy, successful, and helpful life. Its love for its man and its love for it will always be the central themes for every meditation, for one must arouse an emotional response of love in the low self, a response which can be felt and shared by the conscious self. This love is the magnetic force which draws the low self to make contact with the high self and to desire to make its gift to it in the form of sending off of mana across the aka cord of connection. Love ever desires to give and serve, and the ideal gift from the lower man to the higher self is mana. Such a gift, given freely and without a prayer attached to the giving, is the ideal offering. It makes it possible for the high self to bring about such things on a physical level of life as one may desire to help to accomplish. Through the high self, one can, with such gifts, help bring needed assistance to others, even to serve on a world scale. Making the prayer. Number 1, the picture of the thing to be asked in prayer is reviewed and brought clearly to mind. Nothing must be added or taken away from it after the first prayer of any series has been made, unless the high self is asked to drop the entire prayer and begin afresh for some good reason. Number 2, faith must be reaffirmed if anything has come up to weaken it between the sessions of prayer. A strong affirmation of faith is often needed each day before the prayer begins. It is unwise to tell others what one is praying for, because if others thoughtlessly express doubts as to the outcome, the faith and confidence of the suggestible low self may be shaken. Such a suggestion of doubt needs much contrary affirmation of faith to counteract it. There must be a determination from first to last not to allow the slightest doubt of the final outcome to get a foothold in the mind. If necessary, special additional prayers for the strengthening of faith and confidence may be made. Number 3, the surcharge of mana is accumulated, and the low self is told to hold it ready for the moment when contact is made with the high self and the gift of mana can be made. Number 4, sufficient meditation on the high self is made, the body relaxed and easy, whether standing, sitting, or reclining, to arouse the emotion of love for the high self in the low self. The low self, having learned that the reason for meditation is to focus the thoughts and to allow it to make its contact with the high self, will soon learn to respond with love and to make the contact almost immediately. Also to start sending the gift of mana for that particular moment of prayer. There may come, as the gift is completed, a rush of the emotion of love and happiness, which is the response of the loving parental high self. There may also be the sensation of prickling or tingling, which the Kahunas spoke of as the rain or fall of mana changed to higher frequency and sent to bless the lower man. Or one may soon learn to know that contact has been made by some sensation or signal peculiar to himself. Number 5. Once the feeling of having made contact with the high self is noted, the low self is asked to send the prayer picture, in brackets, thought form cluster, on a flow of additional mana by the telepathic means. The Kahunas made it a practice to voice their prayer by describing the desired condition while recalling it as clearly and vividly to mind as possible. They memorized the short description word for word and recited it 3 times over as a means of strengthening the seed while sending the mana to water it. The memorization of the description after writing it out with thought and care will have impressed the prayer picture on the low self very strongly and clearly. 6. When the picture has been described aloud or in silence, if speaking aloud is impractical, the prayer is ended with the same purpose and precision as it was begun. One may simply say, I give thanks, loving Father, and I now leave the prayer picture in your hands to build into physical reality in the future, just as it is already a reality on your level of being. Let the rain of blessing in the form of the high mana of light fall. I now withdraw from contact. The prayer period is finished. Amen. Number 7. The prayer once made is to be released into the keeping of the high self until next contact is made and fresh mana is offered, together with a restatement or additional strengthening layer for the original seed picture. Special notes. Most of us have fallen into a very slack habit early in life of hurrying our prayers. We do this when half asleep as children, and the habit has a tendency to cling and cause us to voice empty words of prayer, which are entirely useless. Another slack habit is that of drifting off into prayer and sleep. If prayer is to be effective, it must be made in orderly fashion with eagerness, drive, and a strongly awakened and moving love. It is the will of the middle self which directs and controls the work, and this force is not exerted unless the conscious self is alert and is concentrating its full attention as it directs each step and superintends the low self in the part it is to play. Another very bad habit is that of carrying all the doubts, fears, and worries of the moment with one into the prayer period. Such things must be laid aside firmly, so that faith may be reaffirmed and serenity reached for the meditation approach. Once one has learned to make each prayer contact with the high self, one may find it well to make the mana gift, then to affirm that this worry or that is being laid aside or given up completely. After letting go of such worries, one may then make a simple verbal request, depending on the low self, to send the thought forms of the request to the high self, such as, Father, I have put away this thing which has bothered me. I now ask that you forgive and cleanse it away. It has been the experience of the HRAs that a short period taken up with this letting go and getting assistance from the high self to clear away the worries and angers and fretful moods of the day or hour is often of great and lasting value. Such a cleansing of the low and middle self may be undertaken at any time, whether a full prayer is to follow or not. There is work that needs to be done in the interim between prayer actions. The normal course of the series of prayers when made Huna fashion is similar to the creative process we know so well on a physical level. First, the seed is produced and may be likened to the mental picture which embodies the prayer desire. The seed then needs to be kept watered and guarded with care for a proper period of growing time. We send a daily supply of manna to water the seed and the plant that grows from it. In due time comes the answer to the prayer in the form of the harvesting of the fruit of the plant. This seems to be a universal way of bringing things about. The egg is fertilized, cared for, and it hatches. The chick then cared for and becomes a grown fowl. The seed or the egg or the thought form picture of the desired condition cannot be changed once it has been selected. Otherwise, it could never produce the thing desired from it. That is why a series of prayers with the seed picture carefully kept from change, once it is given to the high self, must continue day by day until the harvest appears. The progress may be apparent to one during the growing period. One may see the gradual betterment from day to day before the full healing may be said to have arrived. Just as one must live in the desired result when the prayer is made, so when one thinks of the prayer and the desired outcome, it must be thought about as something already as real as the plant in the seed, the chick in the egg. This is as true a reality as either the ear of corn on the grown plant or the chick when hatched and grown. The difference is in the time that must be given for the growth, not in the basic reality. Understanding this, one can think of the desired condition as being already a reality without insulting one's reasoning powers or intelligence. Yes. Another essential thing to be done at all times, from the making of the first prayer action up to the time when the complete answer is given, is to take all possible steps on the physical plane to help bring about the desired condition. God helps those who help themselves is especially true here. Common sense and straight thinking win out. The idea embodied in the words, "Serene, I fold my hands and wait," is not applicable when it comes to effective prayer. The three selves are partners in living, and each partner must do its utmost to bring about the desired conditions. Prayer, rightly and effectively made, is not a degrading business of begging. It is, first, a becoming worthy, and second, a building with all the power of reason and experience that can be mustered by the middle self. Third, it is an active creation in which all three selves play their allotted part. The past is beyond change. The present is slipping from our grasp. But the future is ours to mold in every way. With the great kahunas of old, we can rise and exultantly cry, "Behold, I make all things new." Making new is making Hu, H-O-U, in the language of the initiates. See what secret steps the word reveals in its secondary meanings. A. Hu, H-O-U, to make new, to create the new conditions through prayer and work and planning. B. To extend or reach from one place to another, symbol of the Aka chord and of making the contact. C. To soak with water, symbol of supplying mana to water the seed. D, to repeat any act, to do over, do again. Symbol of the repetition of the prayer daily, so that the mana may be supplied and the picture held clear and firm and strengthened, in order that all things of the future can be made new. And that concludes Chapter 10. Chapter 11 is called Healing by Laying On of Hands. Till soon.